Hey guys, Checkers here from ClimaxCombo with a deck profile. I'm going to be profiling my 8 gold bar Kobayashi build that runs the level 1 Todu combo and the level 3 Itaru combo. This deck is a pretty aggro build. It's meant to just output a bunch of damage, gold bar comboing every turn, and ending your opponent with a scary finish. So it's a little different from the original build, just fine tune, I guess. I mean, a lot of the lists are really similar to this. In this profile, I'm going to go over the lineup and generally how I play the deck and things to keep in mind throughout the game. To sort of start things off for level 0, for the level 0 Todu from the TD, 3500 power. It has all your opponent's characters gain pay 2 Encore. And the other effect is at the beginning of your opponent's attack phase, you can move her to your empty front row, center slot, or center stage, middle slot. And yeah, pretty good card. One of the only options you have for strong level zeros. Little sticky. 35 base, pretty good. For these double R, Kobayashi, Todu, and Kana, 2k power, and as no on-play effects, at the beginning of your opponent's draw phase, you can mill the top card of your deck, and if that card is a level 2 or lower, then this card gains the effect of when it's front attacked, you can return it to your hand. So this card is all right. It's a pretty easy condition to get it back to your hand, so you'll usually have it, and you get some advantage by being able to replenish your hand. It's just 2k power, so it's not super strong. It's all right, and yeah, it helps get you through the early game. You kind of need it, to be honest. For these Kobayashi 1k power, when one of your characters is sent from stage to waiting room, you can send her to your waiting room and place the character that was sent to waiting room back in its original slot rested. So it's like a pseudo encore for any of your characters. And a startup, you can rest her to give one of your characters 1500 power. So it's nice to keep around any valuable front row attackers. And it's a nice power boost. Pretty useful card. For these level 0 Kobayashi, 500 power. The first effect isn't really relevant, but if you run a 2-1 common Toru, it becomes a 1k global when that character is on play, but not relevant. Don't run that in this deck. The other two effects are pretty relevant. It's a brainstorm, pay 1, rest her, mill the top 4. For every climax you hit, you can salvage a character from your waiting room. And the other effect is at the beginning of your climax phase, if you have 4 more characters on stage, other characters on stage, you can rest her to draw a card and then discard a card. So, kind of not the easiest condition with this deck. It's hard to keep a lot of advantage. So having a full field could be a little taxing, but when you are able to draw one ditch, that extra draw into your deck could be super useful. So, very good card. I mean, plus brainstorm. All right. 3 of these Kobayashi 1500 power. When she's played on stage, you can discard a character to search your deck for either a card with Resonate in its card effect text or this level 0 Kobayashi specifically. And the other effect is you can send her to your waiting room from stage and discard a card and then salvage a character from your waiting room. So just a very good card for hand filtering, grabbing any targets you need. It's good for grabbing these Kobayashi because you kind of need a lot just to make sure you have resonance targets. You can also grab your level 3s, which we'll get into later. And the second effect is nice for, grabbing a different character that might be more useful to your front stage. 3 of these Toru, 1500 power. When she's played, you can discard a climax to salvage a character, and when you play a climax, you can bounce her back to your hand to give one of your characters plus 1k power for the turn. So it's a pretty useful card, again, for keeping your hand size up. You can fill your field up with her for any conditions, and then when you play a climax, you can bounce it back to your hand. It's a good hand filter if you're getting too many gold bars in your hand. Just overall, very nice utility card. One of these Kobayashi, on play, you can shuffle two cards back from your, or two characters back from your waiting room to your deck, and if you do, you can give one of your other characters the effect of this card suffers no soul penalty when side attacking. And then the other effect is when this card attacks, your Idadus gain the effect of during your opponent's turn, they gain 2k power. And there are a few Idadus, so that power could be relevant, but it's mostly here for the first effect to complement your in-game finish, and I'll get into that later when I explain how to play the deck. And lastly, for level 0, one of these Kobayashi, 2500 power. It's just a climax swap. On play, you can pay 1, discard a climax to grab a climax from your waiting room, put it back to your hand, and that's it for level 0. Pretty sure we have a ton of level 0s here. 24 level 0s. It is a ton. But this deck kind of revolves around your level 0s, helping fix your hand, defeat stuff early game. And honestly, there's not much. You kind of need to guarantee your ratios a bit on. Those are pretty much all the good usable level 0s in the deck. But for now, moving on to level 1. 4 of this Toru that combos with the gold bar, the first gold bar combo. If you have 2 or more other Maid or Dragon characters, she gets plus 2k power, making her essentially 5/5 base pretty easily. And the climax combo with the gold bar is when she attacks, you can look it up to the top 3 cards of your deck and add any card among them to your hand, and then send the rest to waiting room. So probably one of the better, I guess, level 1 combos in the set. It's good for this build. I mean, you kind of have to run this gold bar. Makes it a little more repeatable. You can kind of grab anything with her combo. So you can grab climaxes, events, which can be useful. But looking at top 3 and only grabbing from that is not too many options. So that's kind of why the ratios in this build are the way they are. You kind of need to... guarantee all these other cards. But yeah. 2 of these Toru, 3500 power. The turn she's played, she gets plus 3k power for the turn, making her 6/5 the turn she's played. And the second effect is a bond effect. When she's played, you can discard a card from hand to waiting room and salvage the level 0 Brainstormer Kobayashi. This one, which is pretty good. You're probably gonna need a few of those Kobayashi throughout the game, so it kind of helps keep her in your hand. And 6/5 is decent on attack. One of these Idadu, 1/1, 4500 power. The turn she's played, if you have another Maid or Dragon character, she gets plus 4k power for the turn, making her 8/5 the turn she's played. And then the second effect is if you have a full field, essentially, before you play her, you can grab a character from your waiting room and put it to your stock. So as long as you have a full field, it's essentially costless 8/5 attacker, which is very useful for getting over some pretty meaty things. Yeah, pretty good card. And which is why we run the lineup in the beginning the way it is. There's a lot of level 0s that helped you maintain a full field, even though none of them are that great, but you kind of just gotta do what you gotta do. One of these One Elkana. When she's played, you can look at the top 2 cards of your deck and rearrange them in any order. And then the other effect is you can pay 1, discard a card to choose one of your opponent's characters and move it to an empty slot on stage. And then it gets plus 1k power for the turn. But it's essentially kind of a back row killer. You can move something to the front and snipe it out, and the trigger check can be useful late game because that's when it's kind of wild and important to check your triggers. But that's kind of it for level 1. 8 level 1s, not too many. Level 2, we have 1 card, and that's the 2/1 Kobayashi Shina backup. It's 2,500 backup, and then when you use this backup, you can pay 2 to shuffle your waiting room back into your deck. So this is a very good defensive backup. If your deck's not in a good spot, you can kind of get climaxes back in by paying 3 and reshuffling everything. So that has a lot of uses. Just a very good defensive backup. One of those. Now moving on to level 3. We have 4 of these 3/2 Toru and Kobayashi. 9k power. If you have 4 more characters on stage, then they get -1 level in your hands, so they can come out at level 2. Pretty easy condition. And if you have 2 or more Maid or Dragon characters on stage, it gets plus 1k power, making them 10k base. And the last effect is you can resonate with the level 0 Kobayashi on play and either heal 1 or deal 1 damage to your opponent. So a very good card. Early play heal or an extra ping 1 on play. Pretty versatile and very nice. For the boss monster of the deck, this 3/2 Idadu combos with the gold bar. 9,500 power. Notably, and very important for the card, is she has 3 soul. The climax combo is when you play the climax, you can pay 1 to give her the effect of once per turn, when her damage that she deals is cancelled, you can deal damage to your opponent equal to this card's soul. And the second effect is when she attacks, you can reveal the top card of your deck. If that card is a character, essentially, you can deal 1 damage to your opponent. So a very lethal card. This Idadu alone, just one of them, can output a ton of damage to almost single-handedly kill your opponent. But yeah, this is the finish of the deck. It's very lethal, can put out a ton of damage on her own, and this is kind of the whole point of the build. So, 4 of those. And then last card for level 3 is the 3/2 event. It's a stock swap event, and you can salvage a character. Works the same way as any other stock swap. Your opponent sends their stock back to their waiting room, puts the same number back from the top of their deck into their stock. And that is the lineup for level 3. 9 level 3s. And I mean, I said at the beginning, there's an 8 gold bar build, 4 of the level 1. 4 of the level 1 Toru gold bar and 4 of the Idadu gold bar. Alright, so how to play the deck. This deck is very aggro. You are running 8 gold bar, so the idea is to play a climax every turn. The level 0 lineup is, there's so much because you're kind of just going to be playing level 0s a bunch to make sure you have enough characters to attack with 3 characters every turn. But in the opening, you have two main cards to kind of generate a little bit of advantage for yourself. Um, this level 0 is very sticky because of the effect. A 2 or lower is super easy to mill with this deck, so you essentially are going to get it back to your hand every turn. And even if your opponent side attacks, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you just want another body to swing in. So, very good card, very useful, kind of all game. So that's why you run this. And this is just another great level 0, really strong. You can reverse all your opponent's characters with it. Center run is good. But you kind of need to make sure your opponent can't really fill up 2 slots that are going to reverse it. Otherwise, it's definitely not better to play over this. And that's mostly for first turn. But again, both of these cards are really useful, and you want to just draw into either of them early on. So yeah, level 0 is simple. Nothing really too fancy. You're not trying to set up anything. I mean, holding on to any level 1 Todus is fine, because you're probably going to want a climax combo as soon as you hit level 1. I would say the only thing to look out for early is to just make sure you get one of these level 0 Kobayashi. You always want to brainstorm, and even if you don't need to brainstorm, that second effect is really useful for drawing an extra card and filtering out your hand. And as far as the back row, it kind of depends. You have 2 good options to look out for. Either this level 0 Toru, which gets a lot of value in this kind of deck because you run a gold bar, you're going to be hopefully triggering some to keep the pressure up. Even if you trigger too many, you can always play her to filter out your hand. She also bounces back to your hand every time you play Climax, so it helps keep your board fill, helps with all your full board effects, and it also keeps your hand up. And the 1k power is nice. But this card also pumps up your character's 1500 power, so if you know you're going to need to push over one of your opponent's characters, this could be another useful card. And the pseudo encore is nice for keeping around certain targets later on in the game that you're not going to easily grab a lot of your targets, your more impactful targets, like your higher level targets, level 1 and 3. So this card could be useful in those situations. So you kind of want to have an idea of what you're going to do, what your game plan is throughout the game, because this is really the only way to kind of control that. Hold on to it early, and then you can keep it in your back row. Okay, so once you hit level 1, you are trying to combo with the Toru as much as possible. This is your best way to keep your hand up. Very weak card, but you got nothing else, and you can grab climaxes if you are running out for some reason. So yeah, this still relatively simple. I mean, you're trying to gold bar every turn. Now you get more benefits from playing this gold bar. It helps keep your hand up, and it's an okay attacker. You want to make sure you have a Kobayashi Brainstormer in your hand before you hit level 2, because you are definitely going to early play your level 3, so you want to make sure that this is in your hand for that turn. This is useful, and you also have other tools for that. Where'd you go? This Kobayashi helps make sure you either have this level 0 or the level 3 that you want to early play. And you can also sack this to the waiting room to grab another Toru to plus with the combo, or there's a lot of things you can do with this card. This is one of the only ways you can kind of filter out your hand efficiently, like on your turn, and grab specific things that you might need. And the other level 1s, I mean, I have 2, one of each of these. because it just kind of depends on what your goal is. If you're playing a standby matchup, being able to reverse one of their characters with this Irudu could be useful. Maybe they have some strong stuff. Even level 3s can be kind of reversed by this. 8-5, you can pump it with this, so this becomes 10k with just one other card. You can play a Climax, and it's 11k, so you can reverse some pretty beefy things with this Irudu. And this Kana is good for sniping your opponent's back row and any, other cards that might be a little sticky. So you have some tools. It's not like this. It's not the easiest deck to grab these kinds of cards whenever. The only way you can do that is with this level 0 Kobayashi, pretty much, or if you're minusing to salvage with this card, which are, those opportunities don't present themselves that much. So keep that in mind. You want to make sure you have some foresight into what you're playing against so you can keep in your hand what you need. Okay, for level 2, the game plan hardly changes. Now you can kind of look out for this Kobayashi and Toru. Very versatile and actually very good for this build because you can choose whether to heal or to push for more damage. It is important with this deck to win in the damage race. You don't have any heals, pretty much. I mean, it's just this Toru and Kobayashi. And a lot of times builds, I'm even going to change my build a bit to run less of these because the heal is really not that important. It might be nice to early play heal if you need just one more damage to survive that next turn to make sure you can finish off your opponent at level 3, but it's not like super important. Like, you have that option, but then you also have the other option of dealing 1 damage, which can be really useful and helps you push to make your last turn much more lethal, because once you hit level 3, there's no way you're going to get a turn after that. But it just depends on how the game's going, and it's a very good level 3 for that, to fill that role. Either heal or push for damage. Very nice. But level 3 is where stuff gets pretty crazy. Your goal essentially is to be able to play 2 Irudus, I would say, because the lethality of a second one is just immensely more important than any other card in the deck. But it is very difficult to play more than 2 because you have to pay 1 when you play the Climax, which means you need to go into your final turn with 6 stock if you want to play 2. And that is without, if your hand is already perfectly set up, which it might not be. But even just playing 1 is pretty good. And if you're not going to combo with it, you're still getting a ping 1 potentially and a 4 soul attack. So it can still output a ton of damage. But yeah, I mean, if you for some reason have a great game, you can also play this instead to ping 1 and set up for your turn. That's 2 ping 1s before your Irudu's attack, which could snipe some Climaxes maybe or deal an extra bit of damage. Very nice. But yeah, where are you? So yeah, these Irudus do a ton of damage. Keep in mind that the ping 1 is not guaranteed. I have missed it a few times because, sometimes you just don't hit a character, which sucks. But her effect does work on the ping 1 also, so if they happen to cancel the ping 1, then they take 4 damage right away because this gives your characters +1 soul. So it has 4 soul when you're using the combo. So it's a ping 1, and then potentially 4 and 4 on attack. So that is a ton of damage. And your opponent kind of needs to be... Their deck needs to be in a... compressed and not like they just kind of refreshed pretty much. They need to have a lot of climaxes in their deck because otherwise the you can very easily get through your opponent's remaining cards. Like with just this, you can get through like 3 climaxes, and then you can potentially push for a ton of damage. After that, once they've refreshed and taken an extra refresh, they're less likely to cancel. So then 4 damage could stick. One thing to keep in mind also, and why this card is here, is that money backups could own you, because if for some, like the ping one probably won't cancel, so you're really banking on the attack and the potentially canceling that for Iruru's effect. But money backups can be used in those situations to prevent your Iruru from doing damage, which is why this card is really useful. It helps you can side attack for no soul penalty, so you're still attacking for 4. In those situations, your opponent won't be able to back up, and these Irurus are fairly weak, so you're most likely not going to be able to kill anything. So letting one of your Irurus side means that it can survive the turn as well, and you're not leaving yourself open to take more damage. So there's a lot of uses for this card, and definitely only use it for that effect. But yeah, it's a nice little tool. You can only choose one, unfortunately, so one of these is going to have to deal with it. But yeah, you have some options. Again, it's not super easy to just grab whatever you want. You kind of need to get lucky with brainstorms if you want to grab specific things from your waiting room. So you really need to make sure you keep these Irurus in your hand and the gold bar for that final turn. But other than that, the deck is relatively simple and very straightforward to play. You're just trying to deal a ton of damage to your opponent. Tons of damage. Alright guys, here is one last look at the entire build. I personally would adjust the ratios a bit. I kind of want to lower the amount of 3/2s, the Toru and Kobayashi, for either another one of these Kobayashi or another one of these Irurus, just to kind of make it a little easier to have those cards when I want them. But other than that, you're maxed out on all the really important cards, so there's not much room for changing the lineup. Like you can't adjust it too much. I think it's like this for a reason. It's just a glass cannon build. No real fancy tricks. You're just trying to do a ton of damage. So yeah, it's a fun build, and pretty different from a lot of the stuff that I have. So I hope you guys enjoyed the profile, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.